Thank you for tuning in and welcome back to the Sounds of Coherency. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. As we've been talking about in the last couple episodes, how the actions of the Democrats and especially the president are going to drive people to vote Republican in this upcoming midterm elections as well as the next 3 presidential elections. So to kind of, keep going in that same direction, we have to talk about threats to the United States. And as more and more people become aware of what's happening, they realize that the securities that they enjoy here in the United States are being handed over to foreign nations. Your economic security, your food security, all these things, as well as your energy security, seems to be being handed over to China. Now, I say that because, we have to look at the fact that right now they want to lift tariffs on China to lower the prices to bring more Chinese imports into the United States at a time when the United States needs to be increasing its own domestic productions. Now, the reason they want to bring in more goods from China and, just more stuff from China is due to the simple fact that they are declining production in the United States. So therefore, the United States is losing its capabilities to actually function properly. It's losing its infrastructure in many types of ways. So this being said, they want to bring in, they keep talking about the green energy, all of that, renewables, and they want to do more solar panels. Well, the problem is, according to the IEA, China produces 60% of the world's solar panels as it is. The United States is not being set up for large production. So what this will do is actually increase the import of solar panels into the United States, as the United States, the White House keeps saying that they want to put more money into renewables and things like solar panels and whatnot. But it's not, as I've said before, it's not for American companies. This money that they keep wanting to spend is going to help production in China. China's already bought out, American solar panel companies, which began back with Obama. His whole Green Deal was an absolute failure and cost the American people about $500 million. That's a big problem. The money was wasted. There was no recouping any of that. So we're going to watch a quick little video and kind of just give an idea of the direction that our president is going.
When you ran for president and when Barack Obama ran for president, you both said you would renegotiate NAFTA. You didn't.
Trade agreements like NAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China, which forced American workers to compete against people who are making pennies an hour, has resulted in the loss of 160,000 jobs.
The president is absolutely right when he says that China has been cheating for 25 years and that Bill Clinton didn't do enough about it, George W. Bush didn't do enough about it, Barack Obama didn't do enough about it.
How exactly are you going to negotiate that? What magic wand do you have?
The rising China is an incredibly positive development for not only China, but the United States and the rest of the world. Rising China is a positive development. It is in our self-interest that China continue to prosper. We want to see China rise. China is a great nation, and we should hope for the continued expansion. China is not our enemy.
We talk about China as our competitor. We should be helping.
The idea that China is going to eat our lunch is bizarre.
The idea that they are our competition, they're going to beat us, is bizarre.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They're not bad folks.
China's not a problem.
Allowing China into the World Trade Organization, which you supported, extending most favored nation status to China, which you supported, that those steps allowed China to take advantage of the United States by using our own open trade deals against us.
No.
Do you think in retrospect that you were naive about China?
No.
Today we're finally ending the NAFTA nightmare and signing into law the brand new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. Very special.
Listen, it's hard to overstate the importance of the USMCA. This is the single biggest bipartisan legislative victory for this president and this administration. It is a huge deal.
Wage growth is better than it has been since 2009. That means it is better than it has been for 7 out of 8 of the years that Obama was president. But doesn't he deserve some credit for that? It's better. The USMCA is better than NAFTA.
It is better than NAFTA.
And I think it's critically important on day one that we end any fossil fuel leases on public lands.
So there's absolutely no way to sit there and watch that, to hear him say these things over the years, and to believe that something that's so deeply ingrained in him, he just automatically changed his mind recently, due to the fact, even though we find out about the dealings with him and his son and his whole family and their China ties. All of these things are very important, especially when you take into account the decisions that the president is making. There's no way, it's not a coincidence. This is exactly what he wanted. He's using the office to enrich himself and his friends at the expense of the American public. So we have this next little clip, and this is kind of important. I do appreciate every now and then a nice, good video from Fox, so we're just going to listen to this real quick. It's not too long. We're just going to give a little quick bit to it.
The 3 things that any functioning country must have in ample supply are food, water, and energy. Those are the fundamental necessities of life, not diversity, equity, and inclusion. Food, water, and energy. If you have a surplus of food, water, and energy, you win. If you don't, you lose. Now, that may sound unfair, but we did not make the rules. Nature did. We can choose to ignore them, but those rules will never change. Sorry. Thankfully for Americans, we live in a country that is remarkably abundant in all 3 of those things. The U.S. has the most fertile farmland in the world. We've got more potable fresh water than virtually any other place. And critically, and rarest of all, America has the largest recoverable oil reserves on the planet. We are number 1 in that category, and that matters maybe more than anything. Now, they may be telling you on CNN that so-called renewable energy, windmills and solar panels, are about to power the world. But that's absurd, and no one corrects them, and somebody should, because a lot is at stake. If your 9-year-old starts telling you, I'm like Superman, you have to correct him before he jumps off the garage. The stakes are high. So it is incumbent on the rest of us to point out the people telling you that have no idea what they're talking about. We are not remotely close to a green energy power grid or anything even approaching it. In fact, as of today, the world is powered, as it has long been, by fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, that's where more than 80% of global energy comes from. Not from windmills and solar panels. From oil and gas and coal. And that is not going to change soon. In fact, the world's fastest growing economies, that would be India and China, are using more fossil fuels than ever, not less. So why is every person in charge, from the people who make the ads at Nike, to the energy secretary, to the president of the United States, to every anchor on every channel on television, telling you exactly the opposite? We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. At best, they are ignorant. They're not engineers. They are politicians and ideologues. They're the ones telling you that boys can become girls just by wishing it so, and they've commanded the rest of us to believe that. But unfortunately for them, the principles of social justice do not apply to power grids. You can't just rename them and get something different. No, you have to create new and better power grids. And we are nowhere near that, and we will not be anywhere near that during the course of our lifetimes. Sorry. That's reality, and you cannot yell loud enough to make it change. For the foreseeable future, oil and gas are essential to civilization in an utterly non-negotiable way. And that should be great news for America, because here in the United States, we have a lot. Yet suddenly, strangely, the United States is suddenly experiencing shortages of both food and energy. And that's why prices of these things have risen, because we don't have enough of them. How did that happen? Months before the war in Ukraine began, and somehow Vladimir Putin secretly seized control of gas prices in the United States. How did he do that? Before any of that happened, the magic happened. Sober people, a petroleum analysis firm called GasBuddy, decided to do a simple calculation. They wanted to put rising gas prices in context. Here's what they did. Math. They determined every year-over-year price change in gasoline prices in the United States going back to 2002, 20 years. And they found this. From November of 2020 to November of 2021, that would be roughly from Election Day to the end of Joe Biden's first year running the country, gas prices in the United States went up by more than 66%. That was the single highest year-over-year increase since 2002, which happens to be the year that government started tracking those data. Now, this happened before Russia invaded Ukraine. Why did it happen? Super simple. Joe Biden, on the campaign trail, told us he was like Superman. And then he proceeded to jump off the garage. He told us he was going to end fossil fuels. And because no one took him seriously because he's senile and wasn't actually going to win, no one followed up with, what are you, insane? How are you going to do that? And so he kept going. And then he became president somehow. And then he followed through on that promise.
I mean, so we have to really take this into account because this is not good. This is not good at all. The president is sending fuel from our strategic reserves. Now, here's what's funny. Well, it's not really funny, but I said this last year, and people said it was crazy. They decried it as nonsense. You know, the president is trying to help the nation. No, I was very adamant. He's releasing this fuel has nothing to do with benefiting the United States. It is going to go somewhere else. And now we find out that he's shipping it to India, China, and even the Netherlands and other parts of Europe to offset what's happening with Russia and Ukraine. The United States is having such huge increases in fuel prices, an energy crisis. This is not an exaggeration. The United States is going through an energy crisis. And not too long ago, the White House administration was touting its increase of exports of natural gas out of the United States. Nothing they're doing is at the behest of the people. The reality is India and China are two large production powerhouses, and they use a lot of energy. They're not giving up their energy. Do you really think about this, what they're telling you about the United States, all this they're saying about climate change, we have to fix this and the Green New Deal, we must stop fossil fuels. They're only talking about the United States. They're only talking about places like Australia, Europe. There are certain places they do not mention it. They're not talking about India. They're not talking about China. There's no sanctions or fines being put on China for their excessive waste and energy use. No. It's torment the American people. And I believe that this is being done because they have such high investments in China. By destroying the American production, they increase their own profits from Chinese companies because cheap labor, cheap product. You know, China does. People forget about the suicide nets they put in because the people that were working in the factories were jumping off the buildings at such high rates. They had to put in nets to stop that. Remember, people from Apple went over there, decried it. This is treacherous. How could they treat these people like that? Everybody was up in arms in the United States. But it didn't stop you from buying an iPhone. It didn't stop you from buying your laptop, your clothes, or any of the many products that you buy that come from these factories. No. You felt good to virtue signal for a couple of days and then you moved on. And that seems to be the case with a lot of things. But right now, this energy crisis that the United States is facing goes a lot deeper than just you being able to put fuel in your car. It also comes into contact with agriculture, your food, production. Diesel is used for production. Diesel is used to fuel the vehicles, the trucks that distribute it. Take it to the distribution centers so that it can make it to the different areas of the United States. As was pointed out by the Energy Commissions, the East Coast of the United States only has about 2 weeks worth of reserves of diesel. So as supplies start to go lower and lower and lower, once you start hearing about them wanting to tap into the East Coast strategic reserves, you should be very wary of what's coming, because you're not too far off from running out. You have truck drivers paying over $1,000 to fill up. The cost is going up, and the cost gets passed on to the retailers, which passes it on to the consumer. And just as the oil companies made a nice little tweet in response to Joe Biden, yes, whatever intern wrote that tweet needs to take an Econ 101 class, because you just can't lower prices as supply goes down and demand goes up. It's not how it works. So, again, these financial situations and the United States being pretty much sold off to foreign nationals, there's more reasons that people are waking up and will not be voting Democrat in these elections coming up. I'm sure you see many of the man on the street videos, and as much as people want to try and pretend, this is hurting them in more ways than they would care to admit, because they would have to admit that they made the wrong decision when they voted for Joe Biden. But we're going to see how this turns out. A lot is going to come, but I firmly believe in my prediction that this will be a Republican tsunami this year in these midterms, and you will have Republicans voted into office for president over the next 3 elections. But let's see how that goes. I thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.